Hello, True Health Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Today, I have with us such an inspiring guest. I'm so thrilled to bring you Geneen Roth. She is one of the pioneers in diving into and healing this complex understanding of what causes compulsive eating and perpetual dieting, that emotional eating, overeating, binging, purging, yo-yo dieting, that entire package of hot mess that a lot of us, many of us, have on some level or another, and has helped to break through to the root cause, and for many years has been helping people to finally heal from it. She sees that it is really it's deeply rooted in personal growth and spiritual healing. It goes far beyond food and nutrition and body image and weight. She believes that we eat the way we live, and that our relationship with food, money, love, sex, career, it's an exact reflection of our deepest held beliefs about about ourselves, and the amount of joy and abundance and pain and sacrifice we believe we have or have allowed to have in our lives. I have loved learning from her for years, but when I joined the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, I had no idea that she was one of the teachers at IIN. And so, in the last year that I have been taking the Institute for Integrative Nutrition's Certified Health Coach Training Program, I got to learn from Geneen Roth, in addition to many, many other amazing teachers. Her talks on healing the root cause of dieting and body image are so, so moving. Today, she comes and teaches some really interesting tidbits. What I love about her teaching is it's so simple. Sometimes when it's really complicated, it's not really getting to the truth. Have you ever noticed that in life, when something is so profound and so simple, it is so close to the truth? And what she teaches are very simple steps that make a huge impact on your life. So if being a health coach is something that has interested you, I've been talking about IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Know that Geneen Roth is one of the many amazing teachers. And if you want to check out IIN, you can get a free module. You can do a whole module of their training for free. Please go to learntruehealth.com/coach and you can check it out. You can also call IIN. Just Google IIN or Google the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Give them a call, ask them to give you their course outline, ask them to give you a free module. Make sure that you mention that you learned about them through me, Ashley James, and the Learn True Health podcast, because I have a deal with them that they will make sure that they give you the best price. Whatever the best price is, they will take care of you. My personal favorite is when they offer a complete no interest payment plan. That's what I did. I did the no interest payment plan, and that means it makes it affordable for you to do an amazing program. You can end up choosing a whole new career or add to the career that you're already doing, or just do it for your own personal growth. I think I would have done IAN just for my own personal growth, but I'm so interested in helping people gain their health back that I've learned so much, and I can go on to help so many people, and you can too. So enjoy today's interview with Geneen Roth. Please share it with your loved ones who have been struggling with shame, guilt, body image, yo-yo dieting. If you just want for them to just be in love with who they are, and as much as you're in love with them, then please share this episode with them, because Geneen has some amazing words of wisdom that are so healing. And if you'd love to learn more about becoming a certified health coach and learn from people like Geneen Roth, please Google IIN, Institute for Integrative Nutrition, give them a call, or go to learntruehealth.com/coach. You can also listen to the interview I did with Joshua Rosenthal, who's the creator of IIN, and that was a lot of fun too. Or you can email me Ashley at learntruehealth.com. I'd love to answer your questions. I think it's such an amazing program. I definitely want to help those out there who want to become health coaches to become health coaches, because health coaching is going to help transform this health movement. Naturopaths, acupuncturists, herbalists, health coaches, we're all hand in hand helping people to realize that health is more than just waiting to get sick and then taking some drugs. Health is your personal growth, your personal worth, that you deserve it. The nutrition on your plate, but also the nutrition in your heart and your relationships, and moving your body in a way that makes you love your life and love your body. There's so much more to health, and this is what I'd love exploring today with Geneen Roth. So enjoy today's interview. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 177. I have with us the most amazing guest. I am so inspired by her work. Geneen Roth, you have been an inspiration to so many women, helping us to break the constraints of emotional eating, overeating, to find the true heart of the matter. You teach such simple steps that are so profound, like pausing before we eat to ask ourselves if we're really hungry. You know, those simple steps I learned from you 17 years ago were monumental in my transformation in terms of learning how to become more mindful. And through being more mindful, we can become more grateful. We can access more joy. We can shed these insecurities and these all the negative emotions about lack and what we don't have. We can shed that, and we can get in touch with everything we're so grateful for. And you help so many women to do that. So I'm so thrilled for you to be on the show today to help us gain more of that joy, more of that gratitude in our life, so that we can have a healthy relationship with ourselves, our body, and our plate. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. What a lovely introduction.
Well, and for those listeners who have never heard of you, I'd love for you to start by sharing your story and what led you to be this incredible author and healer that you are today.
Thanks so much, Ashley. I lived in food hell, food and body hell, for many years of my life, from the time I was 11 to the time I was 28. I defined myself by the size of my thighs, the size of my belly, and what the numbers said on the scale. I was only as good or as worthy as a basically thinner or thin body weight. And any time I went above that, which was most of my life, most of the time of those 17 years, I loathed myself. And I felt that everything that was wrong in my life was wrong because I was fat, because I was overweight, because I had binged. There was this sense that if only I could get that right, then everything in my life would come together. And so I went on radical diets, many, many radical diets. I can't even count all the diets. I was addicted to amphetamines for 4 years. I was addicted to X-Lax. I threw up. I spit up. I limited myself to 750 calories a day. I was on Weight Watchers for a while. I went on many self-created diets like the All Brown diet, which was cigarettes, coffee, and Diet Shasta cream soda. I did that for 3 weeks. I went on the one hot fudge sundae a day diet, thinking that if I could only eat 1,000 calories a day, why not have it be all sugar, and why not have it be a hot fudge sundae? And then eventually I became anorexic because I finally decided to get myself in line somehow and stop eating so that I could be happy, or stop eating as much. And so I limited myself to 150 calories a day and lost a lot of weight, as anybody who's limiting themselves to 150 calories a day does, as well as in those years I jogged 4 miles a day. It was just oh, I don't even know what to call it. Um, I was on a mission to be finally and forevermore thin, and then I did get down to 82 pounds, and at some point I couldn't stand it anymore, and so I binged, and then I went up to 160 pounds within 2 months. At that point, I decided that I couldn't live like that anymore. I was suicidal, and from having gained all that weight over a period of those 17 years, and I decided that I was going to stop dieting. I had to stop depriving, shaming, torturing, and punishing myself. And so that's how it all started.
Was there an aha moment? Like, was there like this just revelation, or did it just kind of accumulate to the point where you were just fed up with it and you finally said enough is enough?
Well, I was in the depths of suffering about it. I don't think you can get any lower than planning how you're going to kill yourself within the next 3 days. And so I think being in the hell of that and realizing that my life had come to that, that I was willing to kill myself because I wasn't thin and I just couldn't stand it. Wasn't really, and this I think is the tough part for people to understand even now, not about me but about themselves. It wasn't the weight itself. It was what I was telling myself, the stories I was telling myself about the weight and what I thought it meant about my worthlessness and my neediness and how disgusting and repulsive I was and what a failure I was. Those were the stories over which I was suicidal. I didn't realize that. I thought it had to do with the fact that I couldn't stop eating. I felt utterly out of control, and I just couldn't stand the shame of it anymore. And so I think in the pit of that, at the depths of that, it did occur to me that something else might be possible. I read a book called Fat is a Feminist Issue then, and I was sitting on the floor of a bookstore researching how to kill myself. That was before the internet. Happened to see that book, and for the first time in my life, I had the sense or the idea or the question, I should say, that maybe there was some purpose to all of this eating. Maybe I was trying to get through to myself. Maybe my weight was expressing something that I didn't know how to say any other way. I didn't know how to get my attention, and so I considered that I wasn't insane after all, and it was that changed. I think it was the combination of being suicidal and seriously suicidal to also considering for the first time that maybe there was some way I was trying to get through to myself through my eating that I wasn't able to get through to myself any other way.
That moment where you're sitting there in the bookstore researching how to kill yourself, and this book pops up into your life that has you start to see and think things in a different way. Did you feel like that was divine intervention?
um, I don't remember what I thought then, but I remember being incredibly grateful for that book and also incredibly grateful to something wiser than myself or a wise part of myself for being willing to consider anything besides suicide.
And that gratitude that you had for that author or that book, have you ever stopped to consider that there are countless women who have that same amount of gratitude for what you have now done, all the books that you've written?
I get gorgeous notes from people all the time telling me that something they read in one of my books saved their lives. They wouldn't be on the earth right now if it weren't for my book, that their mother gave it to them, or their aunt gave it to them, or their sister gave it to them. I hear that all the time, and I am so thrilled about that because, of course, um, you know, well, first of all, I don't really think it's me. I think something in them, when I was sitting on the floor of the bookstore, my pain and the suffering that I was feeling opened up the possibility for me to consider another option. So I love looking at it from multi-dimension, seeing that there was an openness in me, that I was receptive, and that, of course, I had to be the one to do the work of this. And so when people come to me and say, "You saved my life," I am so thrilled about that, and immediately recognize that they saved their lives, that
Mm-hmm.
they're seeing in me something that they either are or are not recognizing in themselves, but I want to be the mirror to the brightness there, to their willingness to do what it takes, to be inspired to do what it takes, to save their lives and to open themselves up to these shining possibilities, not just of losing weight or being at their natural weight or ending their suffering around food, but to living a life that they love, to living this in all parts of their lives, to listening to themselves, to not depriving themselves, to not shaming or fearing or guilt tripping themselves. That's what's important to me, that they wake up in the morning and they feel like this life is worth living, and I am somebody who deserves to be living it.
I definitely want to touch on how we can end that vicious cycle of guilt and start to get ourselves to that place where, like you said, we wake up in the morning and we feel like we deserve to be there, like we deserve to have a wonderful life, and we deserve to be there. In that moment when you were 82 pounds before you quickly gained all that weight, that had been your goal for so long, to just this, as if only I was thin, if only I was skinny, and that continuous drive to get thinner and thinner. And then you got to a place where you were unhealthfully thin. Did that ever bring happiness? It's this constant drive. If only I was this, then I'll be happy. But once we get it, we're never happy.
Yes, and isn't that the irony and the paradox, Ashley? And that's how it runs through every aspect of our lives. So I discovered that when I did get thin. In fact, I hear many of the people I work with, because I do ongoing retreats, and so I work with people over time, over 5 years or 6 years, or after their issues with food are cleared up, then they realize, oh, there are deeper issues here that led me to having a challenge with food, and then we start working with those. But what they tell me, they say things like, I would die to be as thin as I was 5 years ago, when I would have died to have been thinner. So even in the moment that they were as thin as they ever wanted to be, they raised the bar, and that didn't make them happy. Or as somebody who lost weight, in Weight Watchers, she had a Weight Watchers ribbon, and she came to me, and the ribbon said, "I lost 10 pounds." This was years ago in Weight Watchers. I doubt they do this now. The ribbon said, "I lost 10 pounds," and underneath it she wrote in hand, "And I still feel like crap." Because I think what happens is that whenever we think that something out there is going to fix something in here, we're always disappointed. Whether it's a relationship, having a dreamy relationship, whether it's having a house we love, or moving to a city that we want to be in, or a job we love, or whatever it is, as I call it, on the horizontal dimension, on the level of experiences, when we get what we think we want, then we realize we wanted it because we wanted to fix something inside ourselves. We thought it was going to do that. And those things can do what those things can do. And, goodness knows, having work that you love and living somewhere that you love and being in a relationship that is satisfying and supportive and loving, all those things are great and lovely and wonderful, and they don't fix what's going on the inside in the way that we thought they were going to. I know for myself, when I met my husband, who I've now been with for 31 years, he said to me, "I'm going to love you like no one has ever loved you." He said this to me when I first met him, and he has. It's been beautiful, but it did not fix what I call or what I thought was the damage at the core of me. It didn't fix that. He loves me. He loved me, but it didn't fix that. That was an inside job. Nothing on the outside could fix that part on the inside.
So when you finally were fed up with it and you were just done with dieting, what got you to the place where you could release that cycle of guilt, that trap, that continuous feedback loop of feeling guilt and shame? What had you break it?
Realizing that the the way through was something I had never, ever, ever considered, which was listening to myself, which was going inside myself and asking myself what my body actually wanted to eat. Also listening to when I had had enough. And this is the part, because I'm going to say something about the shame for a moment, because I think this is a big part of any of our processes, whether we're dealing with the physical level with food and weight, whether we're dealing with something with work, whether we're dealing with something with relationship, is disengaging, learning how to disengage from that voice of shame and that inner torturer, or what I call, actually, a friend of mine named it, my friend Catherine Ingram, and now I have adopted it, the crazy ant in the attic. We all have this voice in our heads that dictate to us, you should do this, you shouldn't have done this, I can't believe you did this, what were you thinking, who do you think you are? Often in a workshop, I'll have people within the first hour write down 10 criticisms they've made of themselves since they walked in the door, and 2 pages are not enough. So, I'll say 10, but many people will have 50. And this is within the first hour. Things like, I can't believe you wore those socks, or why didn't you comb your hair better, or what made you think that coming to this workshop was going to help anything, or don't you know that you're a failure and you'll always be? Why don't you stop trying so that you can stop being disappointed? Things like that are going through our minds about ourselves, every single part of ourselves, all the time. And we don't realize that. We think that's us.
Mm-hmm.
We think it's true. We think, when that voice says, "Oh, look at you, you're disgusting," and that's how that voice talks, with some kind of disgust, we either merge with that voice and agree with that voice, or we feel about 2 years old, and that we're relating to that voice from a very small part of ourselves, yes, you're right, you're right, you're right. And then we just cower and walk around feeling ashamed. And so, what I work on with people almost right away is that they learn how to disengage from the crazy ant in the attic, because until we do that, we actually don't know what we're hungry for. We don't feel like we're even allowed to sit down at the table and spend time eating. People who are struggling with food often feel like they're not supposed to sit down. They're not supposed to have a meal. They're not supposed to enjoy their food. Other people will be looking. Other people will be judging. And other people, often in the form of the crazy ant in the attic, are saying, who do you think you are? You know, you need to eat quick meals of cottage cheese and carrot sticks. You're not allowed to enjoy food. And so disengaging from that voice is very important.
It seems so counterintuitive to our survival and evolution as a human species to have this mechanism, to have this self-talk that is constantly criticizing us and putting us down. Where do you think it came from? Why did we develop this?
Well, it is a developmental necessity. Everybody has one. It's not just you or me or, the people who come to my workshops and retreats. It's, everybody's got one. By the time we're 4 years old, we have to learn not to put our hands in the fire, not to cross streets when there's a lot of traffic. We have to learn that when we go to somebody's house, we can't throw food on the wall. We have to learn, we have to become upstanding members of society, so to speak. And so we internalize what our caretakers tell us. Don't do that, don't do that. And not only that, we internalize what it took to be loved. For many of us, this voice is a protective mechanism. If, for instance, our mothers were depressed or unhappy or in any way lonely or sad, and we somehow were born with a different sort of outlook on life, so we were happy or outgoing. It wasn't okay to be happy and outgoing often around somebody who was depressed. And for a child, her main thing is, or his main thing is to be loved. We need to survive. And the way we survive is being loved. And the way we're loved is by adapting, listening to and being loyal to our caretakers. Every child is loyal, and every child has a lot of compassion for what's happening around him or her. And so we adapt, and we don't want to make people miserable with our happiness or whatever it is. And so that voice develops as a way of keeping us safe. It's just become maladaptive. It was helpful when we were 4 and 5 and needed to learn table manners. It's not helpful at a certain point, and certainly not as adults.
How can we tell the difference between our true self and this crazy ant in the attic? What are some of the signs that we need to go, those thoughts, that self-talk is not truly me. It's something that's not helping me. So to give it that voice by saying it's the crazy ant in the attic.
Yes, well, I tell my the people that I work with, and I follow this myself. When I feel small, collapsed, diminished, ashamed, paralyzed in some way, then I know that I am listening to that voice. So oftentimes you have to backtrack. Something's going on and you were feeling fine, and then whoop, suddenly you feel like you're about 2 inches tall and you're judging yourself harshly. So you can either feel it physically by noticing that you feel small, collapsed, wrong, damaged, diminished, or you can hear that voice. Some people just hear that voice. And what I teach my students is learning how to recognize it by those ways that you and I just talked about, physically in your body or in your head. You hear it. You hear yourself saying, "You stupid idiot." It has that ring to it of disgust almost. You can hear that. I often say to my students, you wouldn't talk to anybody like that. You certainly wouldn't talk to your child like that. And yet you feel like it's okay to talk to yourself like that. So you recognize that and you start learning how to disengage and learning to say no. You're not my friend. I'm not going to listen. No. And some people find it easier to replace that with a a sentence like, "You are not my friend," or go outside and drink some margaritas right now. I'm not listening to you. Sometimes it's humor with the voice says, "I can't believe you ate that much." And sometimes it can be humor depending on your own personality, and you answer, "Oh, you think this was a lot? You should have seen what I ate for breakfast." And just to shake it off. You just shake it off. Or that voice says, "You are the most selfish person in the world." And of course to that you say, "Really? Really? The most selfish person in the world?" Or else you do the Aikido way, which is saying, "Well, yeah, I guess I am." But it doesn't matter. If you're just going with the flow of it and you're not arguing, it's the argument that's so hard. It's the but, let me prove to you that I'm still okay. It's that.
Hmm. Now, this could help people in so many areas of their life because not just like you mentioned, not just for food, but their relationship with themselves and their life, their career, their partner, their children. This crazy aunt in the attic is there to put us down whenever we're awake. When it comes to
Or being disloyal, I would say, to what you were taught was was going to bring you love. And for all of us, that's different things. Some of us, we're not allowed to speak up. We're not allowed to disagree. Some of us were allowed to disagree, but only about certain things. Some of us were supposed to be vociferous about and smart and intellectual, and when we're not feeling like that, we don't know what to do, and that's when the crazy aunt comes in. So, yeah.
It's interesting how different it would affect people depending on their culture. Like in certain Asian cultures, the children are raised not to look into the eyes of their parents while they're being disciplined. So don't look at me when I'm talking to you. Whereas in
Right.
the in maybe North America, we would say if you're disciplining your child, you want eye contact. So you say, "Look at me when I'm talking to you," and so in certain Asian cultures, they're taught to be more submissive. Don't look people in the eye, that kind of thing. And then here it's the total opposite. So, but the voice would be telling people different things depending on their upbringing, is what you're saying.
Yes. But the reason that we want to get out from under the influence of this voice is not just because it's shaming and punishing and makes us cower, but also, just as important, is because unless we are free from it, then we can't actually figure out what we really want. Or in any area of our life, you should be a lawyer, you should be a writer, you should have gone to that party when you didn't want to go to that party. That voice is willing to comment on every single thing we do or say. Well, maybe not everything, but many of the things we do or say. And until we are out from under its sway, it's hard to know what we really want to eat. It's hard to know where we really want to go. It's hard to know. So the reason to get out from under the influence of that voice is that true change is not possible until we do. And because you can't really be in touch with yourself unless you let that voice, not let it go, but unless you disengage from that voice. Because that voice is blocking you from being with yourself. It's posing at yourself as yourself. It's an imposter.
Can you walk us through some steps that you found really effective in your workshops to helping people? So, like, I loved what you said. Write down 15 criticisms you've made up, you've had in your mind since you came here. I think that's really powerful because it allows us to begin to see, holy crow, like this is just a non-stop. Like I've been really buying into all these thoughts like they're the truth. And that level of awareness is definitely the first step to seeing that it's not us, right? It's not my authentic self. What other steps have you found very effective at helping people to um separate ourselves from that voice?
I'm going to broaden it out here so that we're talking not only about the voice, but about the whole um, sort of way of living in yourself rather than a short distance from yourself, which is the way most of us do. And um, and this is related to the crazy ant in the attic, but not specifically about the crazy ant in the attic. For instance, I really recommend to people, and they don't like it when I first say it, to come out of their minds and into their bodies, to sense their bodies. Now, when you're in your body, by that I mean you're just feeling your feet on the floor, your hands wherever they are, your butt in your chair. You're actually using your senses so that when you look, you actually see. Most of us walk through our lives like ghosts. We walk to the kitchen, but we can't even remember what we were going into the kitchen for because our minds are, or you go into the living room and you can't remember what you're there for because our minds are so active. We're so stimulated these days by so many different things and so living in our minds that we consider ourselves from the heads up instead of from the neck down. We think that's the most interesting part of ourselves, our minds, our thoughts, and yet we don't come into our bodies really. And for instance, if you've been attacked, so to speak, by the crazy ant in the attic, your body will tell you immediately something is wrong. You'll have a queasy feeling in your stomach, your heart will drop, you'll get tight, you'll clam up, you'll know immediately something is amiss. But because most of us don't really spend time in our bodies, even though we have one, even though it's been, talk about loyal, it's been really loyal to us. Last year, Ashley, I broke a vertebra in my back, and it was incredibly painful. And the process itself taught me that I didn't even realize I had a back. I mean, I knew that my back was in back of my front, but there was a way in which I didn't really turn towards my body with any degree of respect or sweetness for having schlepped me through all of these years of my life. there's a way we don't consider our bodies. I heard an interview recently with the director or the writer of this movie, The Big Sick. It was a great movie, or I thought it was a great movie. And this writer said, it was a woman. She sort of had an ideal body for our culture. She had to go into a induced coma because of an illness she had, and what she said was, when asked, well, what did being in that coma, I think it was a month or more than a month, teach you? She said, it taught me how much I loathed my body before it, and how much I could appreciate that I had a body after it. So I think most of us were clueless, and believe me, I include myself in this, about our bodies. And it's not for most of us until the last month or year of our lives, if we've been diagnosed with an illness, that we start appreciating the functioning of this body. And so I want people to be aware of what's fabulous about their lives and their bodies now, before they're diagnosed with an illness, before they're in an accident, before they break their backs, like I did. How can you stand, I call it stand in your own two shoes now? How can you do that right now? As people are listening to us, they can check in right now. Where are they? Are they in their minds? Are they aware of their feet on the floor? Are they aware of their hands? Sometimes just being aware of your right hand and feeling the life force in it can help you come back to your body. And coming into this body, because you have one already, is a great way to be alive and to stop the mind. Talk about mindfulness. Talk about the gorgeousness of feeling the wind or hearing a bird or seeing the light or any of that, and you start appreciating the fact that you're alive, and then bringing it back to food. Then you don't need to eat when you're not hungry, because that's your only nourishment. And for many people who compulsively eat, meaning eat when they're not hungry, not stop when they've had enough, it becomes their only sweetness. And so we want to broaden the avenues from which we all can receive sweetness and nourishment, and not just have it be about food.
That is so beautifully said. I read a study a few years ago that shocked me and also really gave me some clarity. They did this big study where they took a bunch of people who were overweight and a bunch of people who were just thin, naturally thin, never thought about weight their entire life. And they, hooked electrodes up to their heads. And what they figured out was that obese people obsess, which as we know, obsess about food. The next, what am I going to eat for lunch? What am I going to eat for dinner? What am I going to eat next week? When we go to the Andersons, what are we going to eat? And I'm going to go to that restaurant tomorrow. What am I going to eat? And they think about it and really plan it out. And they expect so much more joy. In fact, that they predicted it was something like, or they mapped out, it was something like they expect 3 times more enjoyment out of their food than what they actually get. So when they sit down to finally have that meal they've been thinking about for the last 12 hours, it's they're not there. They're not present to it. They're not enjoying it. It's this, it's all of a sudden very dissatisfying. And those who are, thin, don't spend almost no time thinking about food, and then when they sit down to a meal, they enjoy it way more. All the centers of the brain that they know are associated with joy or happiness light up way more than the obese person eating the exact same meal.
Mm.
And it's just it's so interesting that to see what you're saying about how when we're really focusing on the crazy ant in the attic in our mind, and we're disassociated from our body, we're by the time we finally sit down to eat that meal that we've been thinking about enjoying, we're just listening to all the criticisms, and we're not that voice, like you said, is saying, what do you mean you can't sit down and enjoy that? You don't deserve to. You're too this, or you're not enough of this. And so we're just, like robbing ourselves of the joy in the moment. And then putting this bait out, this little carrot out in front of us. If I'm this, then I'll be happy. Or when I have that meal, then I'll be happy. And you're right. It's completely detaching ourselves from being in the present moment in our body, and just enjoying and appreciating what we have right now.
Well, I didn't read that study, but I do a lot of eating meditations at when I teach retreats. And I sit with a whole group of people, many of whom are struggling with food, but many of whom aren't struggling with food. They've come for different reasons. They've come because they're interested in working with the intimacy factor in their lives, or their financial issues. So I have discovered that most people aren't present most of the time, not just when they're eating, but also present for most of their lives, because we're always thinking about the next thing. We're taking the past and we're putting it into the future. And when people sit down to eat, it's no different than that.
Mm.
It's their minds go away almost immediately. Can't wait for the meal, can't wait for the meal. Here comes the meal, gone. I'm thinking about either the next bite and not focusing on the bite that's in my mouth. Many of us do that. If you watch anybody eat, you'll see that the hand comes up to the mouth and the fork comes up to the mouth, and then it goes down to pick up another piece. But way before that bite in the mouth is done, we've got the next piece coming up. So, or the next bite. So we're rarely, and this isn't just with food, but food, I often say that we eat the way we live, and that our relationship with food is a microcosm for our relationship to life itself. You can find out everything you want to know about yourself by looking at your relationship with food. I mean, Suzuki Roshi, one of the men who's credited with bringing Zen to America, said, if you follow one thing all the way through to the end, you'll discover everything. And for many, many years, for me, that one thing was food. I felt like and I still do, I wrote about this in my book, Women, Food, and God, the world is on our plates. If you look and see if you're present or not, how you feel or don't, what's going on, you will in your relationship with food, you will discover every belief you have about your life here on earth. And in that way, it's a fabulous doorway.
Wonderful, so beautiful. I so appreciate what you do, because you're taking you have such simple lessons that have the biggest impact, the most profound impact. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing with us. Now, you have some workshops coming up, which we definitely want to let the listeners know about. Speaking of workshops, you have one coming up at Kripalu, which I just love the Kripalu Center. If anyone's on the East Coast, you can even fly there if you wanted to. But Kripalu is a wonderful yoga residential center. It's I think the largest in North America, and you are in October 13th through 15th, you're teaching a workshop called Make Peace with Food Now. The link to that and the information on how to register to that is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast. You also have a 6-day retreat coming up in Pacific Grove, California. What is your 6-day retreat about?
That's what I call an immersion retreat. Kripalu, which is a beautiful place in the Berkshires, and it's right at the height of the fall season, and so it's such a treat to go there that time of year.
Mm-hmm.
What I call it is sort of a dim sum, in a way, if we want to use a food analogy. I give people the map of the territory that we follow. We go over, I have what I call 7 steps to freedom with food, and we go over those, and we talk about the crazy ant in the attic and being in your body and what I call the ghost children. There are a lot of touchstones that I go over in that workshop, and then the retreat. So if Kripalu is the map of the territory, which it's so important to have, the retreat is actually walking the territory. It's the difference between being shown a map and seeing where you are, and then seeing where you want to go, and seeing where how you can get there, and then the retreat itself is there you are now. What's the first step? What's the second step? So it's an immersion retreat in that we spend every day together for 6 days. There's time with me every day at the eating meditations. There's small groups that we divide into every afternoon. There are a lot of interactive sort of dyads that we go. So you're really getting the support. I think what's really important for people is support, a lot of support. It's this is a hard thing to do alone. I think life itself is hard to do alone because we have so many challenges on our time and also on our attention, and learning how to do things differently takes some practice, takes some doing to do it differently. And so I really encourage people to come to a group, be in a group, realize you're not alone, to hear other people speaking about their struggles, and to really get, oh my God, I'm not alone. And here's how this person is doing it, and here's the support. And I encourage people to have buddies after they leave the workshop. Certainly at the retreat, we make a whole process out of making sure you leave with support so that there's ongoing support when you leave. There's
I love
meditation
it.
every day. There's movement every day. It's just many, many things. It's gorgeous. People come to the retreat feeling, what exactly am I doing? And then they leave feeling like they never ever want to leave. They just would like to stay there their entire lives.
Well, when I was 19 years old, back in the 90s, I stayed for a whole month at Kripalu, taking a
Oh,
month-long workshop, and it was in October, so I can say that October is so beautiful in the Berkshires at Kripalu, and it's such a healing, wonderful, mystic place. I just think it's perfect that you're doing one of your workshops there, and then that retreat that you described sounds delicious. You know,
it's
just
right on the ocean,
oh,
which is great. So
mm-hmm.
one is in the Berkshires, the other is on the beach.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, all the information for your workshop and your retreat is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntoyourhealth.com. And then I want to let listeners know about your website because there's a plethora of great information, geneenroth.com. And I recommend signing up for the email list because with your email list, you are coming out with a book, and that's coming out in March. And if you get on
Right.
the email list, you let me know before we hit record that listeners will get some goodies. What'll they get by getting on your email list?
They will get excerpts to the book. They get first-time notices. I do free calls with people on topics. For instance, next month I'm doing a free call called "Being Nice is Overrated," and and so you'll find out about that by coming to my website. Also, my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Geneen Roth. But the most information people find out about is when they're on my list for my, on my email list.
Wonderful. And now your book, which is that's coming out, is called This Messy, Magnificent Life.
Yes, this
What is it
messy,
about?
magnificent life. It's about breaking the trance of anxiety, lack, and discontent that most of us live or have in the background, and that which sort of drives us into overeating or overworking or anything like that. And I call it, it's really a way of dropping the project of me, not doing the endless attempts to fix, change, improve ourselves, but finding out what we can do instead. So some of us are so exhausted by running around doing everything, and so it's about that.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to your book coming out. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing today. Anytime you want to come back and teach more and share more with the Learn to Health listeners, you are welcome to come back.
Thanks so much, Ashley. It's been great.
Enjoy what you heard today on your episode of the Learn to Health podcast. Did something move you, inspire you? Did you get great information that's going to change your life? Awesome. That's exactly what I'm here to do, is to help you gain your health back. Please turn around and share this. If this is something that's helped you in any way, share this with those you love. Love the Learn True Health podcast and want to support us? Awesome. You can go to takeyoursupplements.com and you can support us that way. You'll get access to amazing supplements that are just really great quality for a great price. And there'll be someone on the other end of the line to help you pick out your supplements that are right for you. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Or join our membership, learntruehealth.com/join. That's another great way to support our podcast, support our movement, and you'll be supporting yourself. Gain more information, wonderful videos, wonderful trainings, and you'll also be able to share those with those you love as well. So go to learntruehealth.com/join. Want something fun for free? Go to learntruehealth.com, and right there on the front page, you'll see where you can get our free cookbook. I spent a lot of time making it, and it was so much fun. It's really delicious, healthy recipes. And you can also get our 7-day doctor course. Right there, it's 7 days of naturopathic videos sent right to your inbox, and you can learn from top naturopaths on how to gain health naturally. So that's takeyoursupplements.com for wonderful supplements. learntruehealth.com/join to join our awesome membership, which is only open for a limited time. You can get our free healthy cookbook, and you can also get for free 7 days of wonderful naturopathic videos sent to you. Just go to learntruehealth.com and you'll see it right there on the front page. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you for sharing and helping others. Let's spread this information and turn this ripple into a tidal wave.